Okay, so I'm Joan Van Beesler, and I am the director of Unitarian Universalist Justice Ohio, and I'm with the Ohio Voter Rights Coalition and been working on a registration team for the nonpartisan outreach Ohio Voter Outreach Committee. Susan?
Reverend Susan Smith. I am founder of Crazy Faith Ministries and have been serving as one of the sub-chairs or co-chairs of the Minority Outreach Vote Committee of the North American Nonpartisan Ohio Voter Outreach Committee. Glad to be here.
Okay. You failed.
I know.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ifeolu Claytor. I am the Ohio campaign manager with All Voting is Local, and I'm happy to be here.
And Dan.
Hi, everybody. Reverend Dan Clark, he, him, his. I'm the Ohio Director for Faith and Public Life. Thanks for being on the training today.
All right. And we are talking about being peacekeepers at the polls. Let us start with just a little tiny bit of centering, but with some words from the Representative John Lewis, who said that freedom is not a state, it's an act. It's not some enchanted garden perched high on some plateau where we can finally sit down and rest. Freedom is the continuous action that we all must take, and each generation must do its part to create an even more fair and more just society. That's what we do when we vote. That's what we do when we help others vote. That's why we're here. So what are we going to be doing in this next 90 minutes? We're going to learn about some basic voter rights and the support for voters that is out there and that some we provide. We're going to learn some conflict intervention, mediation strategies, de-escalation tactics, and safety measures that can be applied to tense situations, hoping like heck that we never have to use them. We hope we never have to use them and that we can prevent them from starting. We're going to offer some alternatives to escalation, some alternatives to just calling in the police at the polls if there's a tense situation, because calling in the police in this day and age can make something that's a little tense blow up into something that's a whole lot of violence. And we're going to work through some possible scenarios so you can work those decision muscles. Susan, you want to tell us about the environment?
The environment, it's one of the reasons I was asking you about how you're feeling, because we live in a very tense environment. I think everybody would agree that we are tense about everything and everybody is tense. We have things that are going on like voter suppression and intimidation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said yesterday she waited to vote. I think she said for 2 hours in a green or in a blue state, I guess. And she said just because voter suppression happens in a blue state doesn't mean it's not voter suppression. So there's voter suppression causing people to worry about, whether or not they can mail their ballots and what should they put on. And Joan and I did these community conversations to cover all that. And people are really uptight about it. I have been too. We're worrying about voter intimidation, which is why you were here. There are reports of people going out to the polls and doing all kinds of stuff just to make people uncomfortable, maybe go home. The polarization between us as people, as citizens, as brothers and sisters is just growing and growing and growing. Then there's the virus. I just talked to a friend of mine whose father had dementia, and of course he had to be in a nursing home and he had to die by himself. I just talked with her right before I got on this phone, and he died, and she's wiped out. So we have a nation also that's not only stressed, but it's grieving. We are grieving the loss of loved ones. We are grieving the loss of life the way we used to know it. We are grieving the loss of jobs and homes and all of that. There's the racial division, which is always stupid in this country, but even more so now. And all the lawsuits and all that. We put post office on here because that thing with the post office, I don't know how many of you saw the pictures of them taking the mailboxes off of corners. I mean, that just kind of took the blood out of my toes. It was just so unbelievable that something like that would happen in this country. And then, of course, all of the riffraff with the absentee ballots. So we are here because people are on edge. They are on edge. Yes, they're going to the lines to vote and they're doing it, but they are on edge. And it is felt that we need to be ready to de-escalate in the event that there are problems.
And Ifeolu is going to tell us about what's happening at the polls and some other people at the polls that are there, as well as peacekeepers.
Yes, hello everybody. Hello again. So we have some other roles of the polls, like election protection ambassadors, who will be spreading the word about election protection in the hotline and make sure that Ohio voters can get the correct information. Nonpartisan poll monitors, distributing Know Your Rights cards as well as 866-hour vote protection hotline cards. Um, and they will check on the lines and monitor other potential problems at polling places. So these folks, we're going to go in depth about their responsibilities because they can be your best friends. They will be your best friends if you are at polling locations. We also have social media monitors who identify misinformation and disinformation online and they instead promote fact-based information and encourage us to think critically. And lastly, we have command center volunteers. So if there's an issue that someone calls into the 866-hour vote hotline, the person who calls will speak to a volunteer, and then if the issue is a greater issue, it'll get upgraded to or escalated to our command center. I'm one of the folks that mans that. If you are interested in other opportunities or want to forward other opportunities to friends who might be interested or parishioners, the Bitly link, Bitly/poll monitor, and so that's what we have. Let's roll forward.
And I will put the bit.ly link into the chat for y'all.
And so, who are poll monitors? We have they are volunteers. They are voting advocates. They are based mostly in Akron, Athens, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Toledo, and Youngstown. That's where we have a lot of regional leads and where we are able to staff poll monitors for the most part. When? So they are participating now. I have poll monitors out every day, and we've had poll monitors out every day for early vote. They will also be in full force on election day. So a lot of folks who are working have taken off election day, and they're going to staff election day. And they will call in problems that they don't know the answer to. They also have a jot form where they can submit a report online, and they will record general inquiries that they get either on their paper form or on the digital jot form. So their role for poll monitors is to ensure that voters know their rights, answering questions, assisting voters by checking registration status, polling location, absentee ballot or mail-in ballot information, and they can help fix problems in real time. They also collect data from all voter conversations and report systemic and bigger issues to the command center. Those are the two big kahunas. That's why they're bolded. So the types of issues that we might experience are extremely long lines. Saturday, we definitely saw that in a number of cities, especially Cleveland. Broken machines, inadequate signage, high use of provisional ballots, poll workers giving the wrong information, intimidating flyers or police presence, as multiple voters reporting that they are not on the rolls, voters who don't speak English who have issues, also voters who need accommodations because they are disabled. If they have issues, those types of things that are the issues that the poll monitors will be responding to and reporting. So looking at intimidation, while these are codes and statutes, it's important for us to remember that we are not lawyers. We're giving you this information so that you have some context as to what might be intimidation, but it's important that we are not thinking of ourselves as lawyers when we look at these definitions as described in the Ohio Revised Code. But verbal or physical confrontation of voters by persons dressed in official-looking uniforms, physical intimidation, so standing or hovering close to voters as they try to vote, flyers threatening jail time or other punitive actions against persons who vote, direct confrontation or questioning of voters, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, or asking voters for documentation when none is required, vandalizing polling places, use of police officers to threaten or intimidate voters, or threats made by your employer or your job. So we don't necessarily expect to see these things, but we want to be aware that these things are examples of intimidation in case we do see them. Also looking at harassment under the law. So obstructing the access of a voter to a polling place, engaging in violence against election observers, and we'll talk about election observers a little bit later, participating in a riot or violence or disorder at a place of an election, or another improper practice that obstructs or intimidates or interferes with voters at a polling place. So there's a lot of different provisions listed under the law, and it's kind of broad to make sure that we know that there are different things that fall into this category. Who can enter a polling location? And this is really specific. So peacekeepers are not folks who are entering polling locations, and nor are our poll monitors. But voters, people assisting voters, a voter's child who is not yet of voting age, election officials, employees, observers bearing a certificate of appointment, and we'll talk about that, police officers, and journalists. Also, people who are reviewing the official list of registered electors to see who's actually voted and see what type of GOTV plans there are. So challenging a voter. So the most important thing here is that that everyday citizens cannot challenge a voter. If someone is questioning a voter's status, or if they're a registered voter, if they're in the right precinct, that's going to come from a precinct election official. Uh, but that challenge cannot come from a private citizen. If a voter is challenged by an election official, there's a detailed sequence of events that they have to follow, questions and procedures. Um, but they can only be challenged on the grounds that they are a resident of Ohio or the precinct, a U.S. citizen, or a voting age. But those are the only reasons that are listed in Ohio law. And if a voter cannot prove their eligibility to vote to the satisfaction of the majority of the precinct election officials, they may still vote with a provisional ballot. And when we say the majority of precinct election officials in Ohio, each polling location must have at least 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans on staff, but it is bipartisan. So it's important to realize that private citizens, though, cannot challenge someone's right to vote. Poll observers, I told you we'd come back to this. Poll observers are real things. They're real folks. Political parties who have candidates competing in an election, or slates, groups of 5 or more candidates, may appoint one election observer for each precinct. And they must notify the Board of Elections, and that time frame has passed, so no later than 11 days before the election, and we're about 7 days out now. We're 7 days out now. But they must be qualified electors, and they also cannot be a candidate, a uniformed police officer, or any other type of officer, member of a fire department, uniformed member of an organized militia. None of these uniformed officers can be poll observers. Neither can any person wearing any other uniform or a person carrying a deadly weapon or firearm. So observers are not allowed to interfere with the administration of the election or precinct election officials who are trying to do their jobs. They cannot use recording or audio AV recording devices in a way that might interrupt or interfere with the election, and they may not enforce the law or advocate on behalf of voters. Firearms and open carry. Ohio law does not prohibit carrying firearms into a polling place, but generally it's illegal to have a firearm in a public school zone, a public university or private college or university, a place of worship, or other government facilities, and that covers a number of polling places in a lot of areas. So looking at our voter rights in Ohio, if you are at the right precinct and registered but do not have a proper ID, you must be allowed to vote a provisional ballot. Or if you're not on the poll list, also you must be allowed to vote with a provisional ballot. You have the right to a provisional ballot if you've moved to a different precinct within the 30 days of the election. So if I move tomorrow and I show up to my old polling place, I still have to be provided a provisional ballot at least. And you will receive notice to determine if your ballot will count. You must be allowed to vote if you are in line when the polls close. So some of you folks might be at early vote centers or at polling locations when the board closes. The folks who are still in line when that time closes, they must be allowed to vote. You are not required to provide proof of citizenship, but there is a type of identification, and there's a long list of IDs on the Secretary of State's website. You do need to provide some type of identification on election day. If you need assistance due to accessibility, you can be assisted by a person of your choice, but not your employer, union rep, or a candidate. But you can also receive assistance from poll workers, and poll workers do have certain guidelines where they are required to assist voters who are disabled. Polling places are neutral grounds, so you cannot wear campaign materials, attire, or paraphernalia into polling locations. Voters also have to follow these rules. We should not be in there. We should not be wearing campaign materials or other type of paraphernalia and voters should not either. But we shouldn't be entering the polling place anyway. Candidates and volunteers are not permitted to campaign within 100 feet of the polling place, and campaigners cannot come within 10 feet of the folk in the line. And we'll talk a little bit more about those rules as we continue in our training.
Right.
The last thing I want to say is that we have the nonpartisan voter hotline, which provides nonpartisan information about registration status, polling locations, voting rights, and intake processing for voter rights violations. And we have the 866 hour vote. Hopefully, you will see, have seen, and will see yard signs. We also have the hotline in Spanish and Asian and Pacific Islander languages, as well as in Arabic.
Okay. Well, Ivaiolo has given us quite an overview of this, and you will receive these slides as well as some other handout material. So you don't have to be scribbling furiously. You will have these to review. But with all of the poll monitors and the observers and other things, the question then is, what does a peacekeeper do? Because the poll monitors are asking, are answering questions from people about, more technical things and what's going on in the voting process. So what is it that you do? Put in the chat right now what you think a peacekeeper's role might be. And as you do that, I'll give it all away and tell you what we think a peacekeeper is going to do, okay? But put in the chat what you think. Ensure safety, de-escalation, reduce tension, address potential conflicts. Yes, indeed. Remind people to stay hopeful and calm and kind and help diffuse difficult situations. You got it. Conflict prevention. Conflict prevention, and then de-escalation or harm reduction if needed, to provide a safe and calm and welcoming and friendly voting environment so people are willing to stay there even if it takes them a long time to vote. So people are willing to be there and happy to be there. Poll monitors do most of the information provision. You should know some basic things they do, but they do most of the information provision, and they are your buddies, all right? They're your allies. And they also have that hotline to 866 hour vote. And there will be other clergy show up at some of the polling places too, who haven't had the training, but are there to try and also offer peacekeeping or chaplain duties. And you will want to meet them as well because they may be your allies as well. So as you prepare, a couple things. Safety first. Get your PPE, masks, hand sanitizer, all of that. And make sure that you might want to bring a couple of extra, all right? Charge your phone, bring a charger battery. Yes, these are housekeeping things, but really important. Figure out where the bathrooms are for you and others, because we have found that you might actually be asked to hold a spot in line for a voter who needs to use the bathroom. And it would be your, hold a little flag or have something colorful. Or if you're clergy, you're wearing stolen collar, they can easily pick you out of the line then when they get back and slip back in. It's a real problem. Be wary of people asking about illegal things. Hey, is it all right if I vote because I'm only a green card holder? No, do not even go there. It's probably somebody from Veritas trying to trap you into, something on a video. Bring food, bring water, bring a little extra if you can, a bottle or two of water. And faith leaders, wear clerical garb, colorful, bright, yellow, orange, bright ones, stoles, your clergy shirt. We're asking all peacekeepers to wear bright gold or bright yellow, so that we can tell you across the crowded lines who you are. Look for other clergy and other peacekeepers and other poll monitors as allies, as I said. And make sure you greet the poll monitors and election officials that are outside the polling place so that they know that you're one of the good guys and who you and your team partners are. So say hello to them, know them. If there's a police person there, go up and tell that police person who you are too, okay? But don't enter the polling site. Don't interfere with voters' access. Don't engage in any partisan discussion under any circumstances, no matter what they say to you or trigger in you. Do not incite, provoke, or escalate. Don't promote candidates or even issues. Don't talk about them. Don't answer questions you don't know. That's why God invented poll monitors and 866-hour vote. And don't ever argue with election officials or workers. Instead, call 866-hour vote. Okay, Susan.
So, and I have to apologize up front because this is almost feeding time for the dogs. So if you see me looking right and left, I'm looking at dogs and cats are going crazy. So sorry. The goal, one of the things that we are doing is we are using techniques of nonviolence to de-escalate if it's necessary. The working definition of nonviolence is that it is an act of love. And that almost sounds like weird in this time when nobody talks about love. Everybody talks about division and differences. But this work that you are doing is really the filling out and the completion of an act of love. The goal is to win people over by showing them love. And it is also the only way we can do that is to regard each other as human beings and not as objects. One of the reasons there is so much unrest is because we have separated into tribes. And when you do that, we're in tribes, other people are in tribes, and we regard each other as objects and not as human beings. And so we are, we have been, our goal is to win people over by showing them love, by listening to them, by not letting them know that they matter, and by engaging them in conversations as a human being, not as a person that we think might be, you know, a hemorrhoid in our own eyes. We might be a hemorrhoid in their eyes. So we are there to show what love looks like. I think, I can't remember which leader it was that said that justice is love in action. That's, our love is justice in action. So the problems that we have are myriad, and everybody knows them. The problem that we are trying to get through is this tension between each other. You know, this just it's so virulent that it's thick. It can almost be cut with a knife. We're stepping right into that. We're stepping right into it when we see it. We are stepping right into the thickness of the tension. And so what we are trying to do is follow the 6 Kingian principles of nonviolence, which you see. I'm always struck by the sentence that nonviolence is a way of life in this very violent society. When you think that, you have to keep thinking that if somebody is being violent, either with their mouths or physically, and you're thinking we are here to de-escalate, and the only way we can do that is by being nonviolent. That's just like it's like the greatest contradiction, but it is a way of life. We are working to try to make the beloved community in a place and a time where beloved community seems as foreign to us as, you know, the East is from West. We are training you to attack the forces of evil, not individuals. Um, and that's so important. The forces of evil, the things that are swirling around, the beliefs and the prejudices and the latent hatred, and those are forces of evil. The people who experience those things or even communicate those things are not necessarily evil. And so we have to think about that and remember that we are there to attack those forces of evil by listening, by regarding people as human beings, by doing those types of things. We are there to accept suffering without retaliation. So if someone calls you out of your name, if somebody calls you something that just makes you just want to go up one side of their head and down the other, well, we are to accept it. When people in the civil rights movement were trained, they were told they had to be willing to do three things or endure 3 things: be beaten, be arrested, or die, or all 3. Some people said they couldn't do it, and that's okay. But those who did, those who continued in the movement, decided that they would accept this violence without retaliation. It's a very hard thing to do. In the Christian Bible, the Christian Bible in the Beatitudes, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Peacekeeper, peacemaker are the same thing. We are challenging evil. That's what we're doing. Peace lovers mean go along to get along. That's not what we're doing. We are challenging something that is challenging the peace and the state of brotherhood and community for all of us. And then we have to be very careful that we have trained ourselves enough to to anticipate things that might be said to us that would just really get us and damage us internally. Internal pain, internal violence caused by verbiage is just as lethal, maybe more so than physical violence. So we have to train ourselves. We have to prepare ourselves. That's part of what this training is for, to receive that type of violence maybe, and still go after the forces of evil. And we have to be sure that we are trained enough and strong enough so that we don't do tit for tat. So if somebody calls us, so that's the de-escalation thing. If somebody calls you so and so and so, anytime I don't know what we may hear anymore, you have to say, okay, yeah, but can I get you a cup of coffee? Just kind of dissuade and kind of distract them. Um, um, and it's a skill set. So that's why we're here. And then we have to remember, in spite of everything that's going on, a lot of people right now are very discouraged and they're despondent. Some people want to stay home. Don't you dare stay home. Don't you let people stay home. They think that the fight is over. The fight for justice is never over. And the universe is always on the side of justice. It's just that we have to make it happen. People say that they like to go to church. One of the best things about this pandemic is that people are being forced to think about church in a different way. Church is not a building. Church is what we do. And that's what we are doing on these lines when we are de-escalating the violence. The key to this nonviolent de-escalation, again, it's listening, 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 listening. A lot of times people will think they've heard something just because there's so much tension and stress in the atmosphere. Part of our job is to get them to talk and to see what they're saying and kind of go back and forth, repeat back to them what they said, but genuinely listening so we can see what they said, so we can get into a conversation with them. Because usually if you can get somebody into a conversation, if people believe that you care about them, they will kind of calm down. They may not ever believe like you believe, but that's not the goal. We want people to calm down. We need to understand that they are angry. Many people, they're going to be angry for a lot of reasons. They might be angry because of what's going on in the political atmosphere, but they might be ticked off because they've been standing in line for 2 hours. That would make me mad. And if you're standing in line for 2 hours and it's hot and you want to go to the bathroom, but you're afraid you're going to lose your place and somebody behind you doesn't have a mask on, you are going to be uptight. So they're angry. They already brought their anger in from whatever is going on in their lives. And then all this other stuff is piled on them. The worst kind of violence, though, is when people feel like they're shut down. That's called negative peace. That's why the listening is so important. They're starting to squabble about something that they're feeling. Just if we can get them engaged, maybe the reason they're so uptight that they can't go to the bathroom is because they have a kidney infection or a bladder infection. We won't know that unless we take the time to talk and to listen and then be able to genuinely help them. So it's a skill set. Nonviolence is as old as is the history of mankind, and it's as old as the practice of violence. But it's described as being what love is all about. And it's based on this agape love. You love not because you're going to be loved back, but you love because it's the right thing to do and because all people matter. So our struggle will be to be in control of our own anger. You may find out, or you may come to believe that, I don't think peacekeeper is my role. That's okay, because as Ife Olu already told you, there's poll monitors and workers, and there's all kinds of ways to be involved. But this peacekeeper thing is a very intentional act of nonviolence. That's what you're here for.
Hey, we're going to see a short video now from the election defenders, and it's going to talk about election tension de-escalation tactics. And then we're going to apply some of these in some scenario work.
Hey, Amsterdam, who's gonna help us about some de-escalation.
All right, y'all. Hey, this is LJ. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm calling in from Brooklyn, New York. And we're going to talk a little bit about de-escalation and just how to be prepared for what's going to go down. There are 1,700 people on this call tonight, and I'm pretty sure that everyone is here because this election's like kind of a big deal. And so I think everybody really has a lot of expectations about what we're going to be facing at the polls. So just take a moment and think about some of the things that you're expecting to see on election day. I think a lot of us are expecting voter intimidation, We're expecting the alt-right, white supremacists, fake journalists, police, and maybe even the military. And so while there's a lot of hype and anxiety about the potential harassment at polling places, more than likely you're not going to face such extremism. However, it is also likely that there might be some harassers that come on the scene. And it's important to just remember that those harassers are there to try to intimidate and threaten voters. Stop, take a deep breath, and know that they can't intimidate you and they can't threaten you if you don't let them. So manage the anxiety of yourself and those around you. You're an election defender. We got your back, and you are here to get trained so that you know what to do when that happens. So the goal of de-escalation is actually about prevention. What happens always with a conflict is that we see people move like a moth to a flame, right? Something goes down and everybody just goes whoosh. That's where their attention goes. And so we want to try to keep things as calm and uneventful as possible. And the best way to de-escalate a situation on the prevention tip is to just start with what you can control. And what you can control is yourself and your team. Check in with yourself, make sure everyone feels calm and comfortable. Talk to other members of your team, discuss anxieties people might have, what they're feeling nervous about, and ask each other to support each other, So next slide, please. We're going to talk about our big de-escalation strategy here, okay? So like I said, conflict, what always happens with conflict is we see people move like a moth to a flame. And what we want to do is we want to focus on the voters. So if our strategy is this pyramid, then the base of our pyramid is to focus on the voters. So if something starts to happen, if there's some harassers or some people trying to intimidate voters, just like turn your attention, stay calm, stay with the voters, be cool and confident, and reassure folks in line that they will be able to vote. If that doesn't work, we're hopeful that, if you take attention away from the folks who want attention, that a lot of times that takes the hot air out of their balloon. But the next step then is to ignore people. So if someone is getting harassed, again, go to that person who's being harassed, stay with them, accompany them, escort them, and ignore the harasser until they go away. One strategy that we're going to talk a bit about also is how to create a line with other people between those who are being disruptive and voters. So like a partition with your bodies. Document what's going on, but don't engage. And then if ignoring harassers doesn't work, then that's a moment that you're going to directly confront harassers. We're going to go over some more tactics for this, but we just really want to stress that the base of this strategy is to focus on the voters, right? That's why we're here, is to make sure everybody can vote in a free and fair election. So remember why you're here and remember who you're showing up for. Next slide. Okay, so we talked about these two different roles around voter care and de-escalation, right? So some of these strategies are for those roles, but we know that each polling location is going to be different. Some of you may have a lot of members on your team, some of you may only have a few. So we're not going to get hung up on assigning roles, but instead we're going to talk about strategies so that you yourself can determine how to spread the skills out among your team on election day. So starting with the voter care and the focusing on the voters, the first thing to do, and I've already said it, but I'm going to keep saying it, is don't abandon the voters. If you see someone getting harassed, don't run over to the harasser. Stay with the voter, ask them questions, ask them their name, keep them company, make small talk. Don't talk about candidates, just like, talk about the weather, talk about whatever else is going on, just so that they feel safe and accompanied. Another primary strategy is creating some distance, right? And I started to mention this a minute ago, is if there are people across the street shouting, block them off by forming a human line. You know, create some physical space between the harassers and the voters. So focus on the voters, not the people shouting, but really try to recruit some people to use your bodies to create some physical distance. Distraction. So, you know, engage voters online, try to interrupt that instinct where everyone's attention wants to go to the conflict, right? Distract them by encouraging them, give them stuff so they feel safe with COVID, snacks, water, when was the last time you sanitized your hands? So just try to kind of change the tone of the situation, and then also document folks who are being disruptive. And we're going to talk more about where to send that information, but let us know on Slack what's going on. And then the last thing is that if you were able to check out the polling location prior to election day, know where people are going to park, know where people are going to line up, know where there could be a safe space. Knowing the physical location of where people will be is just going to ensure that you'll be more informed on election day. In terms of strategies for dealing with the agitator, this is kind of the de-escalation role. We're looking really for some folks who have some experience in this area. So this is what you do when ignoring is not going to help the situation resolve itself. You need to intervene, otherwise it's going to get worse. Everybody should know their own comfort level in taking on a risk that comes with engaging somebody who's agitational. And we're going to have more in-depth trainings on this for those who have experience and are interested. If anybody works as a bartender, please tell us so in Slack, because y'all are the best de-escalators I've ever seen. So before engaging, decide your goal. What is it that you want to happen? Is it you want someone to stop yelling? Is it that you want these people to leave? But don't engage unless you have an actual goal in mind. Next is delay, right? Delay is a really useful tactic. Try to engage, repeat the same information, just try to stall. Oftentimes people get bored and they leave on their own. Delegating is also a really great strategy for interrupting conflict. Ask someone to document before you go talk to them. If you're talking to somebody who's agitational, you know, call someone else over and say, hey, can we get some water for this person? Or, hey, do you need a mask? But by recruiting people around you, it makes you feel like you're not alone, and also might help diffuse the situation. And then directly intervene, right? So going and having what is potentially a difficult conversation with someone who's agitational. And I just want to talk very quickly about some of the tactics for that. I'm a dancer, and so for me, how we are in our bodies is really important, and the majority of our communication with other people is nonverbal. So if we're going to de-escalate a situation, we first also kind of need to be like chill and grounded in our bodies. So make sure that your hands are visible, your palms are out, don't hide your hands or keep them in your pockets. For eye contact, if you're talking to somebody who's agitational, eye contact can be difficult. So we say that you can look right in the center of someone's forehead instead of looking directly in their eyes. Listening, showing that you are listening is a really important tactic. Nod your head, make the sound like you're hearing what they're saying, right? Repeat back to them. Let me get this straight. You're angry because the line is too long. Make people feel like they're being heard. Don't touch someone unless their hand is extended to you. Introduce yourself, right? Be clear about your intention. You know, again, just kind of be calm and grounded and easy in your body. Be aware of volume. If somebody is talking very, very loudly, you can try talking very, very quietly, and then something happens in their brain where they start to kind of regulate their own volume. And ignore any personal attacks on you. Remain on topic, right? Another tactic that we use a lot is using we phrases. So something like, we don't talk that way here, or yelling is not the way we treat people. So make the situation about something larger than just yourself, right? And then the last thing I'll just want to say is that if you need to remove someone from an area, there's a formation that I train people in using that's like a horseshoe. So it's never wise to completely surround somebody who is feeling aggressive. You always want to leave people an exit for them to remove themselves from the situation. So you can grab a couple other people and kind of form a U, and then walk in the direction that you want someone to go, right? And that they can kind of lead themselves out. So the last thing that we're going to look at is an actual polling location. This is actually Shauna's former polling location. Okay. So here we have a church at a busy intersection, right? There are businesses, there's parking, there's public transportation. So this is pretty average polling location, right? So some of the questions that you want to ask are, where are voters going to park, right? So we know that there'll be a concentration of voters in this parking lot. There we go, right? And here are maybe some voters across the street who are getting off at the bus stop, right? Where is the line of voters going to be, right? And also, because we're in an era of COVID, the line will be even longer because people will be distanced from each other. So you kind of know where our voters are going to be. And then where do you think agitators might show up, right? Are they going to try to come into the parking lot? Are they going to try to come at a different angle and interrupt people online? So you want to just be able to kind of take a survey of the scene and anticipate where conflict might pop off, right? So in thinking about the voters in the parking lot, you can prepare yourselves that you might want to be escorting voters from the parking lot to the polling location. You might want to anticipate where you're going to create a blocking line. So if somebody gets very, very agitational, where are you and the other election defenders? You can see it right there in orange, where you can kind of form a body blockade to separate the interrupters from the voters. So this is just one way that you can kind of look ahead of time at your polling location and anticipate where some sites of conflict might be, and anticipate also the tools that you're going to need day of, such as forming a human line, escorting people, accompanying people. So this is one way to help you get prepared.
All right. Just to emphasize a couple of things that weren't quite mentioned in the video. One is, how do we first approach people? We don't just jump in like, Mighty Mouse there to save the day, because that could cause more problems than it's ever going to help. So introduce yourself. Ask if you can help. Seek their consent. Always seek consent before you intervene. And of course, observe everything thoroughly beforehand. Don't tell people what to do. Shut up. Instead, engage and listen to them. But don't tell people what to do. Distract them, find common ground. They talked about that. One of the best distractions I ever heard was somebody who just suddenly started singing happy birthday to a person they didn't know to distract people from a bunch of harassers. Okay. Bring your partner, your poll monitors if needed before intervening. Have your backup ready. Know that you can signal them without having to shout across the parking lot, hey, get over here. Okay. Of course, you're following your masking and social distancing, because we're not there to enforce social distancing or mask rules or really any other rules, but we want to model them in ourselves. We respect if people need more space, and we work out with our partners in advance when and how to call for outside help. Okay. Susan, are you back on the line? Okay, she probably has puppies. Let's talk about police interactions a little bit. because that may happen. Because poll workers are trained to call the police in situations of tension, no matter what. But don't be surprised by that. That's their first call. That's their first inclination. Now, if a police person comes up, introduce yourself as a peacekeeper, but never touch a police officer. That can be taken as assault or as resisting arrest. Don't touch them. You ministerial types, don't touch them. Don't argue. Don't get upset or hostile or speak in a confrontational tone. Keep it cool. You can have one of your members record interactions, and that's okay. But keep it cool as you do that, and advise folk around to remain calm, because the police person may be there for really no good reason, but just keep it calm. Now, if something escalates and an arrest occurs, first off, we are not expecting that you will be arrested. This is not a nonviolent direct action event. Those of you that have done Poor People's Campaign work, this is not the case here. But if somehow the police are detaining people and they're near you, ask if you are being detained. And if not, walk away. And if for some reason you find yourself arrested, say you want to remain silent. You want to see a lawyer. And then you remain silent. Do not talk, because by talking or describing the situation or trying to excuse somebody's behavior, any of that might hurt others. It might hurt others. So do be silent. And the poll monitors and the others on your team will be contacting us all furiously to get our lawyers involved. Okay? And now I'm going to ask Dan if he can relate a little story about peacekeepers in action.
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, as Ramadan was coming to an end, we learned through some allies and some networks, kind of like the folks connected on this training, that a hate group based out of Central Ohio called Coach Dave and the Salt and Light Brigade were planning to disrupt those going to pray and worship at Omar Mosque on Eid, on the last day of Ramadan. And so we reached out to some folks in the Muslim community and spoke to the leadership at the mosque, and they wanted a peaceful, supportive presence so that their folks could pray in peace. And so that's what we did. We used networks like what we're doing here, and we turned out a lot of folks. About 200 people showed up on that very sunny Friday morning, and we waited peacefully. And then Coach Dave did show up with about a dozen folks, and they had megaphones that they spewed hate for a while, but we were able to create enough support that the folks going to that mosque for Eid felt supported. And Coach Dave lost interest and moved along and didn't get what he came for. He did not get to disrupt our Muslim sisters and brothers directly. So we're grateful that you're going to employ some of these same tactics so that voters can also feel safe this weekend and on Tuesday. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move into a time of working with some scenarios. I'm going to put you in little breakout rooms. As you're looking at some of these scenarios, remember what your desired outcome is in the situation, and who is it that needs the protection? What are the potential outcomes you're dealing with? What tactics do you want to use to make that outcome? And then, is this a low, a medium, or high risk situation, or an emergency situation where you want to call us and we bring in more peacekeepers? So I have put these scenarios in the chat box, and I'm going to break you now out into 8 lovely little rooms, and you will have about 15 minutes to talk, and then we'll unpack all of this. And you should be getting invitations. There you go. Hey, here's everyone coming back. Whoops. Share my screen.
It's up.
Okay, very good. All right, great. Well, let's start to unpack some of these scenarios. And before I show you what some other groups have said about them, I'd like to ask if somebody would like to share their group response to number 1, the voter is frustrated. Jump right in there. Okay, group number 1, how did you respond to that first one? Did anybody get to it?
Okay. So do we know what numbers we were in groups?
Well, some do.
Oh,
There was a note.
Oh, okay.
Well, we were group 2 and we can answer. If you
Answer, please.
Well, we thought the first thing that you probably want to do is to remind the voter that this isn't the place where that'll get handled, that it'll be handled inside and that only the people inside can handle it.
Okay, anybody else have a response to that?
And also to talk with them about their frustration about not knowing whether they'll get counted, and they're probably waiting in line. But there are poll workers inside who will let them know about their ability to cast a provisional ballot.
I read this scenario as part of it could be that they're being told that by a poll worker. Like
I did too, Morgan. Yeah.
Poll workers are volunteers who don't get enough training. They're very often wrong or confused about the laws and who can do what. And so whenever this happens, my first instinct is to call that legal observer hotline and bring in a lawyer to come and help mitigate the situation. I don't rely on poll workers knowing what the rules are. And it's not against them. They don't get trained well enough.
Right. And did anybody say that this was the kind of scenario where the poll monitors who have the legal hotline and know much more about provisional ballots than you do should be called over? Okay. For the,
are the poll monitors outside the polling?
Yes, they are. Those were the roles that Ifeola was talking about.
And I also want to highlight the poll monitors should have a hot card, which of course is not showing up on my virtual screen, but it will talk about, it's a Know Your Rights hot card that talks about provisional ballots and the fact that every voter is entitled to provisionally in Ohio. Like someone on another call said, Kim Jong-un could cast a ballot in Ohio, could cast a provisional ballot in Ohio. That doesn't mean it's going to count, but they can be given a provisional ballot.
Right. Always. Okay, let's go to the second one. Who had a response on that one? Voter A is electioneering.
Well, we talked about just stepping in and, speaking with voter B, just kind of talking to them, having a casual conversation to try to, distract them away from what's going on. Then if that doesn't work, ended up, turning to voter A and just kind of, again, trying to do basically the same thing.
We can offer support to voter B, but what do we do about voter A?
Well, there goes the poll monitor again. It's up to them to do that, I think, to confront anybody.
Actually, I'm going to say this is the poll worker, the actual poll officials, because electioneering is not allowed. And it's the poll officials who can enforce those rules. We're there to give support to person B, but the poll official, the poll worker, is the one that can enforce those rules, and that is strictly against the rules.
So please distinguish a little bit between poll monitors and poll workers.
The poll workers or poll workers are also precinct election officials. That's how the state recognizes them. But those are the folks who are working at the polling location, as in like they are being paid by the Board of Elections.
And how do we know them?
Well, they will be inside. But poll monitors are our volunteers that will also have a lanyard. In some cases, they'll have a T-shirt. They might have on an election protection face mask or a button that says election protection, and they will have a clipboard. So we want them to alert the 866 Our Vote hotline and tip, and that the people who monitor that, and especially our command center, will call the Board of Elections and say, hey, like we have some folks electioneering. We've gotten reports that folks are electioneering, but the poll monitor should know how to report that either
Yeah.
through the hotline or through their jot form. Either way, that gets handled by the poll monitor. The
And in,
poll,
and in some places on early voting, there will be poll workers outside, paid
correct.
poll workers outside, and you can report to them. You can say, hey, look at that.
And in Cuyahoga, they have on vests, like very bright vests that say like elections, either blue or yellow.
Yeah. Okay. So there are other things there. I mean, this is so you know who does what. All right, let's go to poll worker threatens to call the police because 2 voters are in line arguing.
One of the things that I had suggested, given that I'm near the person threatening to call the police, is introduce myself and say, let me go see if I can intervene on that before we call the police, and then walk over to the 2 people and start a conversation with them. See if I can de-escalate.
Mm-hmm. Distract, de-escalate.
But let the poll worker know what I'm doing so that disarms them at that point.
Because we don't want the police there. If we can all avoid it, we do not need police escalating tensions on a voting line. You can separate the 2. You can use your fellow peacekeeper, your teammate, to help separate the 2 if need be, and each talk to one. They might just want to express frustration. So mitigation and listening may be what's needed here to make sure that the police don't get called. But that's good. Yeah, tell the poll worker, I'm going to go see what I can do. And then introduce yourself and ask for permission to intervene. Can I help? Okay. All right, let's go here. Voter 1 isn't wearing PPE and is coughing. Voters 2 and 3 are confronting voter 1. Who has an answer to that, or how'd you respond? Because this one's real.
we talked about this in my group. I would love for one of them to hop in.
Okay, come on.
You take a mask over to the person who is not wearing one and introduce yourself and ask them, do they need a mask?
Okay, good first. And then second step, if they say, no, I can't wear a mask because I'm allergic to rubber and elastic.
We talked about in our group, because we addressed this, couple of options of offering water to the person who's coughing, even offering to hold their place in line so they could maybe step out and away from people, offering them a mask, reminding them that they will need to be wearing something when they get up to vote, and just doing what we can to make voters 2 and 3 feel comfortable while giving voter 1 the opportunity to vote and keep everyone else safe.
Mm-hmm. And you can ask the people before and behind to give a little more space.
Sure. Question.
And,
will in the polls, will they be required to have a mask on inside?
They are asked. Go ahead, Ife.
Yeah, they're strongly encouraged. An elections official, so there have been directives like they have to have masks available, etc. If they absolutely refuse to wear a mask, the precinct election officials will ask them to vote curbside. If they refuse that, then they will be allowed to vote inside. But there's really a couple of different steps that are taken. Like, hey, can we get you to vote? Can we get you to put on a mask? No. Can we get you to vote curbside? No. Okay, I guess we'll let you vote. We will let you vote inside. But ideally, there will be some steps before we have folks not unmasked inside voting.
And if they're standing in line and coughing, they can be asked if they want to vote curbside as well. and that would solve the problem too. Okay. All right. Voter A is directing racist, sexist, homophobic language, I'm tired, at voter B. What happens? What do you do?
Kate, why don't you take that one?
Yeah.
Or Morgan, or Al.
Sorry.
Somebody.
There are usually so many Kates. We talked about going over to voter B and just buddying up and talking about the weather and the landscaping and isn't that a cute baby and stuff like that, and hoping that you know, without any oxygen, the voter A shuts up a little bit.
Would it help if I spent some time with you? Make voter B the focus, not the aggressive one.
Offer them some water and talk about this and that.
Yep. And we want to make sure everyone has a chance to vote and feels comfortable in being with them, partnering with, accompanying them. Your partner might go over and just ask the aggressive one, is there something I can help you with? And if the person is just frustrated as heck about everything, they might be able to listen to them and distract them and save everybody else's ears. That's good. All right. Law enforcement's checking license plates. Who's got that?
So I just wanted to ask, I guess, because we were talking about this and I thought, is that the purpose? Is that intimidation? Should we film it?
Yeah.
Does that count as intimidation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it does. So what do you do?
Well, we talked about, you know, for me, I talked about that maybe you could walk over to the policeman and ask him if there's a problem. Does he need any help letting people know they're parked illegally? You know, we could watch their place while they go move their car. You know, again, it might depend on. I thought it'll really depend on where it is. If it's a small town and it's Barney Fife, or if it's in downtown Cleveland by some, you know, white guy that's just a little ticked off at a people, you know, voting. So, you know, I think you have to be, you know, and again, I think that would be a perfect time to call the 800 number also.
Right. And what could your partner be doing?
Warning people.
Or recording the situation.
Yeah, or recording, yeah. You know, I always forget about that, but yeah.
Yeah, and making sure that 866 our vote is called. And so you could be, go ahead, Ife.
You also, this is a prime example of when you want to call over your poll monitor, because the jot form that they have has a record option. So that's just something else to think about, but you definitely want to call 866 our vote, or have that poll monitor call 866 our vote.
Right, your allies. Okay, so 2 or more voters begin to engage in a fist fight.
We said this is a place where you want to keep people from going to the fire.
Right.
So just kind of talking to the people in line and letting the poll monitors call the cops.
Well, do you think they need to call the cops yet? How do you know?
I don't know, but
what if they're
that's assault. So if they're actually fighting.
Well, and what if it's just bluster with no damage?
Well, I guess that's a case where we can ask if we could be of some assistance by talking to them.
You can approach with open arms, open hands, ask them if you can help them. If they're blustering, they might just back off. They might just back off. But if they're really, really then fighting, then with your partner might distract the other people, and you might, as you call 866 our vote, if it's really, if it's looking serious and there's damage, then you need to call police. But see if they're just blustering first. Yeah, Susan.
Do the peacekeepers call the police, or do the poll monitors call the police?
Well, the poll monitors would call the police. They'd call 866 our vote, and then they'd call the police. Yeah.
Well, you got to be aware too that people around are not going to wait for a voter to call the police. There are other people who are filming and doing other things, so it's not in the hands of the poll people. So you got to realize that also.
That's right. That's right. Yours is to keep people safe, keep them backed up, keep them from joining in or getting into the fist fight too. That's what you're there for. Okay. Then don't put yourself in harm's way. Don't get punched. You know, okay, there to protect others. And this is where you need to work out with your partners in advance when the police are called. Okay. All right, let me go to another, because our next one is if you see a weapon. If you see a weapon and somebody is standing in the line, what do you do?
Be aware that there are CCWs carry permits.
Yeah. Voter A comes in the lines carrying a handgun. What do you do?
I think you approach it differently if someone has a handgun in a holster versus the next one, which was someone pulling a gun.
Yeah.
Different, yeah.
Yeah.
So if they're not being disruptive, I'm not sure that there's necessarily a need to approach them. If someone pulls a gun, somebody better approach them.
Well, other people may be anxious, so you take a breath because you may be triggered by having a gun there. Others may be. Take a step back. In an open carry state, it doesn't necessarily mean they plan to use it. As a matter of fact, down in New Philadelphia over the weekend, we had Democrats and Republicans all carrying guns.
We're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see a lot of it. So as to, like John said, take a deep breath, you know, just notice where it is. And because there'll be several of them. We don't have to do anything because this is an open carry state unless they pull it out and, you know, try to assault someone. Then we have to act.
Yeah, so don't try to disarm anyone. Make the environment as safe with some distraction if somebody's noticing and freaking out over it. That's the real issue if somebody's freaking out over it. And then, of course, discuss with your team when you call for outside help.
What do you do? And one of the things that we talked about in our group was the church I serve is also a polling place, and we have signs that say no weapons allowed inside.
That's a poll workers issue.
Mm-hmm.
And the poll workers will be stopping that person because the church is not allowed it's not allowing weapons in.
And hopefully there'll be signs out there so that the people can see it. Typically, people respond a little better to signs than they do to human, you know, push.
Yep. Anything else on that one, Ife, that you know from your experience? Okay.
No, I think that we hit all of it.
Okay. So what if somebody threatens you?
I had a homeless person one time in a church setting. We were upstairs with a balcony, which is where my office was. And I went out to talk with him. The reason he said he was there, I was wearing a real necktie. And he was a little inebriated and he threatened to grab me by the tie and throw me over the balcony, and I talked him out of it.
Okay.
That meant I had to remain cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah.
But I knew that he had me if he wanted me.
Yeah.
And so I talked him out of it.
Yep. Well, I was faced with a gun when I was working at a food pantry. Guy came up, put a gun in my face and said, I need food. Took a deep breath, took a real deep breath and backed up. And my supervisor came beside me and we said, of course, you can have all the food you want. Come on in. You got kids? Hey, they would like this cereal. They would like this. And the guy was sitting there with his gun and pretty soon the gun is at his side and pretty soon the gun is on the couch. Okay. So yeah, it can help. But take threats seriously. Have your partners create distance for others if there's threats going on. Step back, hands out, non-threatening, right? Do not reach for the weapon.
Do not.
Do not. Focus on the individual, not the weapon. Try to negotiate, like I did with that guy, who had the gun in my face at the food pantry, right? What do you need? What do you want? What's going on? Because the more likely they are to engage, the less likely they are to use a weapon. Okay. Buy yourself some time. The longer you talk and hear them, the less likely they are to act. And if you have been friendly with people up to that point, including them, then, considerate and respectful, then that lessens the possibility of violence. Meanwhile, your partners and the poll people are calling 866 our vote and the police. Okay. That makes sense? Some logistics, and then we'll see this wonderful video, if you're willing to stay for 4 minutes. PeaceKeepers will have a lanyard and badge. Our regional liaisons, I'll send you out a list of those, and I'll also send you out what region you're assigned to, okay? And you can pick up the lanyard and badge from those folk, and if you can't make it, I can send you an e-version you can cover in see-through tape, okay? Remember that you're part of the Election Protection Project of the Ohio Voter Rights Coalition. Ooh, I have that wrong. We're missing words. Point people in key cities. Actually, we're working with that right now. And some of you may be our point people because there's a lot of folk on this call. And we are organizing that right now. So point people will be able to call you on election day and tell you where you are needed.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Sign Up Genius already set up for Saturday and Sunday. We have certain counties that we would like people to go and work. And if you want to work in a different county and we don't have a Sign Up Genius for it, you email me and we work that out so you get what you need and maybe work with a partner who's nearby. But we have 7 key places that we need people on the weekend. We will also, if we see something that's happening someplace else where we don't have peacekeepers, you may be called in your region to, can you get there? We had to call some people this past weekend to go to like New Philadelphia where we didn't have a lot of people. We will send out more links and information and how you sign up for different slots. On election day, we're working it out right now so that some of you will be posted to key polling places and some of you will be on call for like 3-hour shifts. Okay. So that we're working out right now. We'll get that to you. Any email will be headed with PeaceKeepers in big letters. So please read that. And a lot of stuff's going to be emailed to you. Okay. We're looking here at October 31st, November 1st, and November 3rd, election day, because we know Saturday and Sunday are going to be huge. And we know that election day is going to be huge. So those are the 3 days we're looking at. If you want to do some peacekeeping work on Monday or any other days during early voting, oh, please, please do. But just know that we're not scheduling folk regularly for that right now. Okay. And then if you want to take some more work, see some more videos about de-escalation work, I can recommend Election Defenders. And you just Google Frontline Election Defenders. Don't worry about the URL, it's too long, but Google it and you can sign up and then you can see all the various trainings they have. Okay. All right, any questions before we go to this wonderful video? All right, you'll be getting a note from me that will have your a link to your confirmation page and then a link to how you sign up and get scheduled. Any other questions? They all want to see the video, Susan.
Mm-hmm. It's
okay.
It's fun.
All right. Well, we're now putting our 501c3C4 hats on, and let me play this.
Good evening. Ella Baker, a giant of the civil rights movement, left us with this wisdom: give people light, and they will find the way. Give people light. Those are words for our time. Just a week ago yesterday, was the third anniversary of the events in Charlottesville. Close your eyes. Remember what you saw on television. Remember seeing those neo-Nazis. Remember seeing those Klansmen coming out of fields with lighted torches, veins bulging, spewing the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. Remember the violent clash that ensued between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. Remember what the president said when asked? He said there were, quote, very fine people on both sides. It was a wake-up call for us as a country. And for me, a call to action.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? And would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love?
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that bring the trauma. Overseas, yeah, we trying to stop terrorism, but we still got terrorists here living in the USA, the KKK. I can't believe they're still hating blacks today. Cause if you only have love for your own race, then you only leave space to discriminate. And to discriminate only generates hate. And when you hate, then you're bound to get irate. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate. And that's exactly how hate works and operates. Man, you gotta have love and to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? And would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love? The love. Where is the love? The love. The love. For the love. Where is the love? The love. The love.
So the question for us is simple. Are we ready? I believe we are. We must be. We can choose a path of becoming angrier, less hopeful, more divided, a path of shadow and suspicion, or we can choose a different path and together take this chance to heal, to reform, to unite, a path of hope and light. This is a life-changing election. This will determine what America is going to look like for a long, long time.
Yes, it is.
Character is on the ballot. Compassion is on the ballot. Decency, science, democracy.
Yeah.
They're all on the ballot. Who we are as a nation, what we stand for, and most importantly, who we want to be. That's all on the ballot. And the choice could not be more clear.
Vote love. Hashtag vote love. Does anybody want to share how they feel after seeing that? Just one word.
One word. You can put it hopeful. Good. What else? You can put it in the chat if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
Brave. Moved, motivated, intrepid.
Susan, you need to send me the link again for that video because I embedded it and I don't have the link anymore.
I will get it.
Okay. I'll put it in the notes that I send out to you guys. Energized, intrepid, motivated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So this is why we vote. This is why we help others vote. This is why we're there, to make sure that it's peaceful and calm and welcoming to everyone to vote. And somebody, Dan Clark, put the link in the chat for you guys. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, my friends, then we're going to close. Thank you for sticking with us a few more minutes. Remember John Lewis's words as you go: do not get lost in that sea of despair, but be hopeful, be optimistic, because the struggle's not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It's the struggle of a lifetime. And never, ever, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. And I thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.